All right, aloha folks. Welcome again to the fall semester. I'm Brendan Morioka, I'm the Dean for the College of Engineering here at UH Manoa. And welcome to the College of Engineering Leadership Seminar Series hosted by some of our favorite supporters, Ken and Donna Hayashida and Kai Hawaii. I always appreciate their support for especially our leadership development of our students in our industry. So very much appreciative to Ken and Donna. So thank you very much. Today is the first day of our fall semester. As you know, we try and do this every first Friday of every month while we're in classes in session. And so this is our first time since we've come back from the summer. So welcome back to Manoa campus. It's nice to see a filled room. Normally we have a lot more online, but it's nice to see everybody in person because face-to-face contact, interpersonal skills, and developing relationships for engineers especially is one of the most important things. And so that's one of the real purposes of this leadership seminar series, right? Is to really kind of expose our students, expose our graduates and our industry to really some of the other things outside of the classroom. And our faculty do such a great job in the classroom, but there's so much more to professional development and individual or personal development than just what you learn in a classroom and on the chalkboard. I guess I can't call it a chalkboard anymore. But so this, one of the leadership seminar series is just one of the leadership aspects that we try and expose our students to. So appreciate you joining us here today. Really excited about our guest speaker, and I'm gonna let Josh and Ellie introduce Kurt, but you know, having Kurt Matsumoto here from Kulama Lanai and what they're doing on Lanai is so amazing. I have visited a number of times because Kurt and some of his folks have invited us a number of times because they're doing a lot of things that the university has opportunities to number one, learn about from them, but then also partner and collaborate with them on a lot of their initiatives. And they're really doing a lot of cutting edge things that I think most of, or the rest of Hawaii, as well as other places in our world can be taking notice and learning from and replicating what they do on a very small island and scale up and have it translational to the rest of the world. So with that, I'm going to let Ellie and Josh introduce our speakers. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Josh. With me today is Ellie. We'd like to welcome everyone to the Leadership Seminar Series of September, presented by the Shida family. We have an amazing speaker today, so we'll just jump right in. Ellie will start us off by introducing today's speaker, Kurt Matsumoto.
Hello everyone, I'm gonna talk a little bit about Kurt. So he's the president of Kulama Lanai, and he leads a diverse management team that works with the Lanai community to plan and implement sustainable commerce, energy, conservation, healthcare, housing, education, and hospitality initiatives. As the third generation of his family, born and raised in Lanai, Kurt has a strong connection to Lanai and to ensuring that the sustainable development of the island maintains the integrity of local values and traditions. So now we're going to bring up Kurt, and he has a little presentation for us today.
Thank you, Ellie. Hello, everyone. So thank you, Dean Morioka, and thanks to Ellie and Josh. They really helped me prepare for today. So it's really an honor to be here. You know, when I got invited, I went home, I told my wife about it, and she's like, "Why is the College of Engineering inviting you?" And I said, "Yeah, kind of to think of it, I'm not sure." And she just looked at me and said, "Well, don't get a big head, but you're just old now. That's what it is." So I'm gonna talk about a few things, and go ahead. Sorry. So I'll cover just three things today. So what my path was to get to the point that I am right now in my career. I'll share some information about what we're doing on Lanai, and then we'll just open it up for some Q&A. So my path to get to where I am today, I can break it down into just kind of four main points, and you can see that up there on the slide. But basically, the four key elements were being born and raised here in Hawaii, moving to the mainland, coming back home. And then that experience is all joined together that allowed me to end up having this position that I'm in today. So next slide. So growing up on Lanai, I was fortunate to be born and raised there on the island. Today, it's hard to say that you were both born and raised on Lanai. But I'm especially lucky because I lived there when it was still a pineapple plantation. So that fact has a lot to do with a lot of the values that I carry with me still to this day. So things like family, team first before self, and being humble and respectful. All those things were values that were embedded into our life growing up there on Lanai. So next slide. If you can see this too well with the lighting, but so as soon as I graduated from high school, I left, went to the mainland, was seeking new adventures. Growing up on Lanai, it's pretty small. So I couldn't wait to like get away and see new things and experience new things. So after graduating from college, I ended up working in the hotel industry, and I did that for about 10 years. And that opportunity allowed me to move. I lived in 8 different parts of the country, and I did that in 10 years. So it was a time when that industry was growing really fast. So being on that kind of a track helped me to move, experience different kinds of responsibilities. And in that industry, at a very young age, you get to be in control of a lot of responsibility in terms of a P&L, personnel decisions, and having that at such an early stage was really impactful for me. And sometimes you learn more from the mistakes that you make than just all the things that you get right. And being able to change positions, move, that allowed me to keep practicing things over and over again. Next. So after a time, home was always calling. Living on the mainland was fun, but I would always find myself looking for something that would remind me of home, whether it be food, go to the beach, something that would make me feel, give me that comfort kind of feeling. So the opportunity came up to be part of the start of the hospitality industry on Lanai. So I took advantage of that, came home, was part of the opening for the 2 hotels there, the Lodge at Ko'eli and the Manili Bay Hotel. So I really didn't understand how significant the change was until I actually got home. I mean, I knew it intellectually, but when I got home, it hit me very hard. One of the things that I had to do, and this was, I look back on it now as a big learning experience. I had to end up managing people that were adults when I was growing up. And that can set you up for kind of an awkward situation, right? But not only that, it was a huge transition socially. And I can still remember vividly having to do the recruitment and interviewing people. And so all these familiar faces are walking into a room with me, and they're crying because they're scared. They're afraid of the change that's about to occur, and it's not the kind of work that they want to do. So, somehow, sometimes fate just puts you in a position where you can actually help a lot more than what you think you can. And, I think it was helpful for me to be there, talk people through some of the transitions, give them some assurances. But that taught me a lot in terms of what it means to be in a leadership position, because you can have a title, but the title means nothing unless people are willing to follow you. So getting people to be comfortable, moving into this type of an arena for hospitality. You go from working in the pineapple field, and if you've never seen, most of you probably have never seen what it's like to actually work in the pineapple field. But you have to be dressed all the way up from the head to toe, even though it's super hot, because the pineapple plants are really tough to work in, and they're prickly. And then to transition over into this 5-star kind of hospitality environment where they get given uniforms. We wash the uniforms for them. In the plantation, you bring your own lunch, you sit in the middle of a dirt road, everybody just lays newspapers down. But in the hospitality industry, they get fed. So watching that transition was fun, but it was also really challenging emotionally to get people to come along and accept it and be comfortable with it. So if you had told me back then, 30 years ago, that we would have 2 world-renowned 5-star hotels moving from plantation to hospitality, I would have told you that it would not be possible. But those people, the people there, came from that kind of a background, turned the island into a destination that a lot of people know about. Until this day, the 2 hotels are really highly ranked. AAA, 5-diamond, mobile, I'm not mobile, but Forbes 5-star. And it's all because of the people that are there. Next slide. So after working on Lanai, I left and went to work on the Big Island and then on Kauai. And when I left, a lot of things started to happen in the world that affects everybody. So like you guys all remember 9/11, we had SARS, and I had to go to Kauai. And as soon as I got there, we had the 2008 recession. So in each of these incidences, one of the things that I had to do was lay people off, not 1 or 2, not a few dozen, but hundreds of people. And that experience really affects you a lot. And that's something that I always turn to when I have to deal with things like budgets and thinking about whether to hire or fill a position or not. Because, you know, to sit there and have to walk through person after person and try to, you know, deliver that kind of a message, it's really hard. It really makes you think twice before you want to jump into, oh, let's add more people and let's just expand roles and do that type of activity in a business. But being able to be flexible, pivot, all those types of experiences are really valuable as you work your way up the ladder. So let me switch gears here and tell you about the work that we're doing on Lanai. So this map that's up here, if you can see it, it's a puzzle. And the puzzle pieces represent all the things that we are involved in on Lanai. We are not government, and we don't do everything on Lanai, but we somehow interface or support no matter what the subject is here on the puzzle. Next slide. So I'm sorry, if you can go back to the other slide. So that phrase, Awamo Kuleana. So the carrying the responsibility is what Pulama Lanai is about. We have a lot of responsibility. So being the majority landowner brings with it a lot of responsibilities. It's not just about a business trying to make money. We have all these different elements that we have to look after. So next slide. So you can keep going. So the next slide, the economy is the most important thing that we're working on. And sustainability, people think about things like being green and energy, but really part of the sustainability model is to have the island economy be self-sustaining without having to have a third party involved. And throughout history, Lanai's always had to have some type of a subsidy. So we've been investing a lot, trying to reposition the hotels. And what we're trying to do is create a low density tourism model here on Lanai. So we're not trying to duplicate what you see in most of the rest of the state, but have a low density type of visitor industry. And what that does is it helps with the lifestyle on the island. So one of the beauties of living on Lanai is the wide open spaces. You can drive for miles and not see another person for a while. And we want to try to keep that character while creating an economy there on the island. Thanks. Some of the things that we've been able to do, we've been involved now for 12 years, and we've been able to develop and diversify some of the jobs that are available within the resort industry. So you see some examples up there. Up in the upper corner, we built an observatory, and we actually got help from the university and did some training with us and developed a program. So now we have people that do a astronomy walkthrough, and they include things like celestial navigation. We have a full art program now. So we have a lot of sculptures and valuable paintings. And so we actually have trained conservators that live and work there on the island and take care of the sculptures. We have our own maritime program. So we have captains that live and work on the island. And then, of course, hopefully some of you know about Sensei Farms and the produce that we grow there. So it's a hydroponic farming operation that was started about 5 years ago. Next. And then some of the things that I'm especially proud of is starting up both a conservation program and a cultural preservation program. So within Pulama Lanai, we have departments that are dedicated to these two things. So being a majority landowner, the economic activity actually takes place in only 2 little dots on the island. But yet we have all this land that we're still responsible for. So the conservation side of things takes on a lot of significance because we have so much land, and so much of it has been mismanaged over time. So go ahead. So supporting employment also is important for us. So we're the largest employer, but we're not the only employer. And a lot of our employment drives other people's businesses and government services. So you can see some examples of that there. Next. So growing food, I mentioned about Sensei Ag, and this is taken off of their website. We have really large greenhouses on the island, and we have our own aircraft, and we fly the produce every day here to Oahu and to other islands. So the concept basically is the produce is picked in the morning and is delivered here to the stores. So by the afternoon, when you're on your way home and you're shopping, you have freshly picked lettuce and tomatoes available to you. Aside from that commercial operation, we have 3 different areas on the island where we're encouraging residents to do farming as well. So we have even a small community garden area. We have about 80 some plots, and residents are able to lease property there, and we even let them sell commercially as well. So they can grow for themselves or they can do it commercially. Next. Something that's really important to us about food is making it available and also hopefully that it impacts people's health. So you guys are familiar with the term food desert. So, you know, in places in the United States, you have a hard time accessing fresh food. So Lanai is kind of in the same situation because it's dependent on a barge that only comes in once a week. And on Lanai, they kind of joke about every week they're asking about whether the barge came in or not, because depending on the weather, you might not get a barge delivery. So we tried to change that. So during the plantation, the grocery stores were open Monday through Friday, and they closed at 6 o'clock at night. And that worked because everybody was basically working Monday through Friday, and they were off work by 3:30, so they had time to go shopping. But now with the hotel industry, people work 7 days a week. We have 3 shifts a day. So we now have the grocery store open 7 days a week, and it's open until 10 o'clock at night. And we also fly food in. So we don't just rely on the barge. We make sure that we always have the shelves full. And we expanded the amount of areas that food is available in the store. So general stores sell all kinds of merchandise, not just food. But now the store is dedicated to selling food. And a lot more fresh food is available than was before. So hopefully that impacts health outcomes in the future. Next. Transportation, living on an island is a big deal. So we started Lanai Air just before the pandemic. Didn't know we were going to need it so much, but it came in very handy during the pandemic because when the pandemic hit, you guys all know Hana Air stopped flying. That was our primary service coming to Lanai. So we were able to pick up the pieces very quickly because we already had Lanai Air established. We started off with 2 planes, now we have 9. And we're flying residents as well as hotel guests to the island and also handling freight. Next. That's the freighter. Next. So conservation, I mentioned earlier about the job diversification. So this slide represents a big project that we have. Kuahibi Akai is the name we've given to this project. We're working with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And together, they're funding a project to fence off 20,000 acres from Mauka to Makai. And the hope is that we can remove all the deer and the sheep from within that area and then help to restore the watershed and also protect the reef. So this is the windward side of the island. Now, you guys all know that usually the windward side of an island in Hawaii is usually the greenest side of the island. You see how dry it is. And that is because of it started off with the practice of trying to grow sugar on that side of the island, and then later turned to cattle and sheep ranching. And then now it's the deer and the sheep that keep nibbling away at whatever whatever natives are trying to come back. So hopefully this is a generational project. So I won't see the fruition of all this, but we're planting the stake in the ground now so that the next generation can continue this work. Next slide. This is a picture of what the fencing profile would look like in the future. So we've already started on this leg of the fencing work right now. Next. So this gives you a picture of the kind of work that we do. One of the things that we have is a quarantine area facility that we developed. So whenever we bring in plants, we're the biggest importer of plant material to the island. So whenever we do that, we take it to a quarantine site where we check for any kind of invasives. So we've been able to keep out coqui frogs, fire ants, the coconut rhinoceros beetle, and any other kinds of invasive plants that could come in. Next. One of the things that comes with land ownership is you gotta deal with a lot of opala. And one of the things that caught my attention when I first came back was the amount of derelict cars and white goods. So washers, dryers, refrigerators. And people were dumping them because they had no place else to take it. So environmental hazard, doesn't look good. We've been collecting over the last 12 years. You can see the statistic there. It's an incredible number. When you stop and think about it, there's only 3,200 people there. But we still do this, and we do this on a quarterly basis, and we're still collecting vehicles and shipping them off the island. Next. The historic preservation is something that's really important to us too. We have a dedicated crew, and what their job is to not only protect some of the important places on Lanai, but also to pass on the knowledge and educate people who grew up there. My generation, we grew up, we didn't pronounce the name of the island correctly, but the generations that are growing there now, they not only know how to pronounce the name Lanai, but they learn about the different places and why it's named the way they do. And we're developing some cultural experiences too, so that youth can learn and take that with them wherever they go. Next. Something that comes with also owning a lot of property there. There was a lot of derelict homes on the island. Now, these homes actually date back to the beginning of the plantation. So you can see here in this picture, in particular, these 3 homes, they sit along that dirt road is today called Lanai Avenue. Next slide. The homes were in terrible shape, and they actually had a fence around it when I got back. So what we did was we did a lot of the preservation work to studies and captured photos of the exterior and interior. And then we had a staff architect who grew up on Lanai, and he designed the homes to look identical to what they originally looked like. And our people were able to rebuild it, and this is what they look like today. And we were able to move in 3 kupuna families, one of which used to live in one of those homes. Next slide. So energy is not something that we're directly involved in, but we're the biggest energy consumer on the island. And we're working with the utility company, and hopefully they've already put in an RFP for a project, and we're hoping that it's going to go forward soon. If it does, Lanai will get 95% of its electricity from PV and battery storage. Thanks. Water is a really big deal for us, as it is throughout the state. We have probably the smallest sustainable yield in the state. So managing there is not just the engineering side or the nuts and bolts of it, but also being transparent. This is an example of information that we post on a water company website. So I remember as a kid going to the post office, and I would look up on the board and there would be all these numbers on graph paper. Never paid attention to it, didn't know what it was. But actually what's happening was they were reporting to the community the water that was being pumped on a regular basis, even back then in the plantation era. So we continue that today. We have other kinds of information on the website. So having transparency and trust is really important for us to develop. Next. And the amount of water that's being consumed today is way less than when it was in the plantation period. So it's kind of an interesting lever when you look at it. There's more people living there today consuming less water than was being used back in the plantation era. Next. So infrastructure is really important. We invest a lot in modernizing, replacing old infrastructure. This is an example of a project we just completed. There was a PRV that was controlling a lot of the water for the entire half of the city. And our partners helped us with replacing, and you can see the results here on the photo. Next. I'm proud to say that our community is fully smart metered. So all of the water meters on Lanai, private residences and commercial, all have smart meters. So residents can sign up for something called Ion Water, and they can actually see real time how much water is being consumed. And what that does is it's empowering, but it also helps to see whether there's leaks in the system or not. So we've managed to stop a lot of the system loss because of this technology. Next. Healthcare, we're not directly involved, but of course, our workforce relies on this heavily. So one of the things that we've managed to do is to help bring services to the island. We make commercial space available, and we've been able to attract like social services. And we recently donated a CT scanner to the hospital. So we funded the renovation of the space, purchased the equipment, installed it. So now on Lanai, you don't have to fly to Oahu or Maui to get a CT scan. You can actually set that up right there, and you save yourself the plane fare and the hassle of having to leave the island for a procedure that only takes a few minutes. So education is something that we're heavily investing in. This is a program that we work with UH Maui, and we've been doing it for the last 10 years, and it's a dual credit program. So a lot of schools in the state have dual credit program, but along with UH Maui, we've managed to attract a lot more students. So the program every year is averaging about 50% of the graduating class having gone through this program. And so students get to take classes through UH Maui, and we've managed to see students graduate with their associate's degree as well as their high school diploma. For Lanai, that's a huge savings for the family, because it's not just a tuition. We don't have really a full-fledged community college on Lanai. So they're able to get that kind of a degree and save all the living expenses, right, while they're at home. Next. And then we also offer scholarships to students that end up enrolling in college outside of Lanai. When we first started 12 years ago, the graduation rate was always traditionally very high on Lanai, but the matriculation rate was below the state average, was like about 28 to 30%. But since we've been having the college credit program, and we also fund a counseling program. And since then, the matriculation rate has been rising to 50% and higher sometimes. Next. This just gives you some data about each year, how many kids have gone through the dual credit program. Next slide. Housing, big topic in Hawaii. We're getting involved in a big way. So this is a development that we have on Lanai, Kapokuau, and we are just past the halfway point of occupancy. These homes are large for Lanai. So the old plantation homes sit on substandard lots. They average about between 700 to 900 square feet inside. They're all 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom and only 1 bath. So these homes sit on 10,000 acre lots. They're 1,700 square feet under roof. They all have 2 bedrooms, 2 bath. And the feature that is the most fun to talk about is they're all completely off grid. They're not connected at all. So solar roofs and Tesla batteries. And when you move into this home, the rent includes things like the energy costs, your water bill. We do the landscaping as well. So it's a turnkey setup. Next slide. So you get a picture of what the Tesla shingles look like. The batteries are inside of this area here. And you can see the real generous sized decks outside. This is what the interior looks like. So when you move in, I mentioned it's turnkey. We have dishes, cups, we have towels, linens, all set up. And so they really don't need to bring anything with them. Next. Yeah, total toilets, walk-in showers. So I have project engineers on my staff, and they made sure that I inserted this slide for you guys to see. So the homes are built using this material, cross-laminate timber, and it's produced in Japan. And you can see some of the most notable things about using this material. Super strong, like steel. When the houses are finished and you walk into the home and you shut the door, it's amazing how quiet it is inside the house. We have construction ongoing, and we were worried about how people would react to that. But because the home is so well built and so well insulated, you can hardly hear the construction noise going on inside the house. Next slide. So we're building 150 of these homes. But in addition to that, we've been busy renovating a lot of the older homes that we own. Now, we don't own all the houses on Lanai. That's a misinformation. We only own about 30% of the homes there and they're all workforce rental. None of it is like vacation rental. Next. And you can see the work that we've done there. So the number of units has increased for us for rentals by 40% over the last 10 years. And here's just some nerdy data to share with you about the land ownership, what the land is zoned for. And that's an important point to note about what that means for the future of Lanai. So you can see most of the land there. We own 97%, but most of it is zoned agriculture or conservation. Next. The population has been pretty stable. There was concerns that, we're going to come in and double the population, but that's not our goal. Next. This is work that Yuhiro did. It's a housing survey, the data that's collected. On this slide, you can see a comparison, similar community size, Lanai and Molokai. The next slide. The thing to note here is this bottom portion. When you look at housing as impact of cost of living, the general rule of thumb, right, is you want your housing costs to be no more than 30% of your take-home income. And you can see here the statistic on Lanai. We're like the lowest community out of 65 in Hawaii in terms of the rent burden on your income. Next. So the outlook for Lanai is, I think, positive. What we've been doing over the last 12 years, I think, is a good foundation for the future. I put this slide in because this is the Lanai Community Plan. And this is one of the first things that we worked on 12 years ago. And you can see that there's not a lot of plans to change the urban footprint too much or the industrial footprint that much. We don't have new hotels planned or anything like that. So the future of the island is to try to protect the integrity of the lifestyle there, but also develop the assets that are already in place. So that's Lanai. So we have some, I think we have time for questions. Yeah.
So moving on, we're gonna have our Q&A. So if anyone here has questions, you can just raise your hand, or if you're in the Zoom, you can type it in the chat. I'm gonna be asking our first question, however. My question is, please share how your upbringing as a youth shaped you as a leader today, especially being born and raised on Lanai. Was there anything special about Lanai that you keep with yourself today and that helped shape you as a leader that you are today?
Yeah, so growing up in Lanai, as I mentioned, there's a lot of values that get embedded. One of the things that's nice about growing up at that time, still is today, is a lot of your neighbors are like your parents too. But your peers, one of the things about growing up there was, you want to be respected, but you want to be humble too, right? You don't want to brag too much or talk too much about yourself. And I think, in terms of leadership, one of the things that's really important is your personal goals cannot be the most important thing about how you interact with your job. You have to be concerned about the people and how they're going to be successful. And if you can really flip that script and be more concerned about supporting other people and getting them to be successful, I think that helps you as a leader. Leadership is simple and complicated at the same time. But in order to be a leader, people have to follow you first, and they got to be wanting to follow you, not because of your title, but a lot of it has to do with who you are and whether they trust you and respect you or not.
I think that's really important. Thank you for sharing your perspective on that. I'm curious, what other values do you hold like important to be successful as a leader? Like what other sort of values do you hold really close to your heart?
So a lot of the experiences that I've had, taught me a lot about we're in a culture where money is important. You have to be successful as a business, and one of the measures of that is whether you're making money or not. So that is important, but I try not to lose sight of the fact that in the process of making money or trying to make money, you don't lose the integrity of who you are and what it is that the core values of the company that you're working for is all about. So for us, as for example, taking care of Lanai is a core value. And so we're not going to sacrifice those things in order to go forward and make a profit. Now, we're fortunate that we can have that kind of a position, but that's one of the things that attracted me to this type of a job. So for you, everybody in the room is going to have different reasons why they want to work for XYZ company. And, if you're going to have a long relationship with the company, it's really important to have those values aligned. So right now for me, in this stage of my life, I'm more focused on getting other people to get ahead and seeing success in different lights. So it's not just about the money. It's about the culture. It's about conservation and looking at the whole picture, not just focused on the bottom line.
Thank you. So since Kulama Lanai is doing so much in terms of home building, renewable energy, sustainability, land management, climate controlled farming. So what kind of opportunities exist on Lanai for engineers to work on projects with you?
So there's a lot actually. So almost everything that we do requires help from an engineer of some kind of background. I've found over the last 12 years, I've talked to people in ocean engineering, electrical engineering, talked to geologists. There's just such a variety of needs that we have. And that experience of working with all these different types of engineers also helped me to see that you guys are essential to problem solving. I have problems. I don't necessarily know how to solve them. I'm always going to be looking for some expertise to help me. And I end up reaching out to this community in order to find answers and help me solve some of the problems that we have. So take housing, it sounds simple, right? Draw up some plans and then just execute, but there is just so much more that goes into that, from, just to get a permit. And we need the people in this room in order to reach and accomplish the types of things that we've done and the things that we want to continue to do in the future.
Thank you. I had a quick question about, like, it seems like you do like all of like Lenai, right? And everything, like many different aspects. So how did you like gain all that knowledge or like know like which steps to take in which direction, I guess, going through it?
So I guess I'm lucky because I was exposed to a lot of different things over time. I worked on Lanai for another employer, left for a while and came back. So that experience and the time away, I think was helpful because there are things that were still the same, old problems that needed to be solved, and I could come in and quickly grasp it, or having left and learned other things can come back and apply new approaches. But I would say for myself, the thing that helps me the most is, number one, I enjoy the variety. I get bored easily. So I like having all the different things. So you can have a conversation about a water problem in the morning, and can totally change to something a little bit more mundane, like, whether we're going to get a delivery of groceries for the week or not. But all of it is interesting to me, but I like the variety. And the opportunity to learn is also, I think, something that you want to continue to have even after you leave the university. Trying to learn something more every day, I think is really helpful. It's helped me in my life a lot, and being curious. Things are not static, right? They're constantly changing. And if you're not curious and you don't try to learn, it's really hard to keep up. So while I do rely on everybody in the room and your expertise, I also need to try to learn a little bit about it so I know whether you're leading me on the right track or not. So I may not know exactly how to solve the problem, but I want to know or understand a little bit at least about what you're saying.
We understand that you are still pretty close with many of the friends you made while at UH. Can you talk about the importance of these friendships that students make while in school and how this network can be of value to you throughout your career?
Sure. So your network is really critical, whether it's just friendships or it turns out to be a professional thing. And it's cliche, but one person knows 10 other people that you don't know. And you never know when it'll come in handy, when you might need something. Just coincidentally, I was reconnecting with somebody I used to work with 40 years ago. Haven't talked to him in 40 years. But he's got a skill that I need right now. And just coincidentally, reached out. So keeping your connections through life, I think is a really valuable tool that you will never regret.
You mentioned earlier having to like lay off hundreds of people. Do you have like a certain thought process as a leader that helped you deal with that personally?
So, you know, when you take on the role and the responsibilities, you have to be able to take the good and the bad. And sometimes you have days, weeks, months even, where it's all bad. And if you run away from those kinds of things, then you can't be in a leadership position because nothing is static. I don't care how successful the company is. Look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA, everybody, you know, talking about their stock and how successful they are. I mean, can you imagine one day losing, what was it, $200 billion? I mean, but being able to deal with those things emotionally and not lose your head, not get so wrapped up in, oh my gosh, the world is going to end. Because, well, it's hard to deliver that kind of a message. And trust me, it is like the worst thing you have to do. But there's still all the people remaining that you have to lead. And they need to know that things are going to be okay. They need to know that there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And you got to provide that for them. And so you have to be able to be in both worlds at the same time.
Thanks for an enlightening lecture. I was just curious, at the end of the year, is Lanai self-sufficient economically? Does it balance its budget at the end of the year?
Well, that's a goal that we have. Are we self-sufficient today? No, not yet. But we're taking strides, making strides to getting to that point. So that is one of the major goals that we have, finding ways to get to that point. There are things that will not be self-sustaining, and they need subsidizing. For example, conservation. It is always going to need someone's care and concern in order to have that kind of activity continue. But the other parts of the economy can become self-sustaining.
Thank you.
Kind of going off of what he was talking about, how are you kind of there, or like what do you kind of tell yourself? Because you're there for all, you as a leader, you're like being strong for them, but like how do you keep yourself calm in that sense and like just know like, okay, we can work through this and all that sort of thing? And how do you maintain like a balanced life?
So first, how do you deal with it? You have to surround yourself with good people. You got to be able to trust and rely on the people that you work with. And that is probably one of the most important things. It's invaluable to have really good people working with you. You can go through all kinds of things if you have that team surrounding you. Of course, you know, having family and friends, that helps a lot too. You know, it helps to have a shoulder you can cry on outside of work when you need it. As far as the work-life balance question, every generation is a little different. I grew up where my parents taught us that work was important. Work was the most important thing. And you have to dedicate yourself to that. Don't embarrass the family and be a slacker. But you know, everybody looks at life differently now. I would say that it's really hard to have perfect balance all the time. Balance will come and go. Sometimes work takes more of your life than you want it to, but it's essential to do it at the time because it's gonna lead you to the next step in your career. That's gonna allow you to have a little bit more balance. But I don't think that you can always have perfection in that. But it's a good goal to have.
On the conservation side, you're talking sheep and the deer. Is that a resource you guys are also using as you're removing them? Is that going to food or is there anything with that or?
Yeah, so we have a dedicated crew that do nothing but hunting. And that's to help keep the population in check. I think that's helped us to manage through some crisis with explosion of deer population sometimes. What that crew does is they like give the meat away. And then we also have once in a while a USDA inspector that comes, and then we sell the meat to the hotels so they can have it on their menu. The rules for the USDA is if we give the meat away, it doesn't have to be inspected. So people who want deer meat, they can sign up and then we'll deliver the deer to them. And sometimes what we'll do is they'll take some of the processed deer meat and give it to the food bank.
And thank you again. Thank you, Kurt, for joining us today. Every time I go to Lanai and see what they're doing, it just never stops to amaze me, the kinds of technology and new innovation that they're applying on an island that is really about community. And so I really applaud Kurt, and he talked about his team. We do have one of his team members, Keiki Pua Danso. So shout out to Keiki who's watching. She's actually one of our former leadership seminar speakers from year one. So love to have our alumni back and joining us. If you ever get a chance, do visit Lanai and see what they're doing. The houses that Palama Lanai is building is amazing. Like you said, they're off the grid, and those Tesla shingles are pretty cool on top of the roofs. And so I love what, and you also didn't mention two things that I remember about my trips to. Number one, Lanai has the largest cat sanctuary in the state on island. And then two, and they boast about this because it's a big sign on the gas station, cheapest gas in the state of Hawaii. So I applaud what Palama and Kurt and his team are doing. So please, again, thank you very much, Kurt. Appreciate you sharing. Next month, October 11th, please join us again for the next upcoming leadership seminar series. Shelly Kimura, CEO of Hawaiian Electric Company, will be joining us as our speaker. She's another strong advocate and friend of the College of Engineering here at UH Manoa. So we're looking forward to seeing what she has to share. Please have a great weekend. Appreciate you joining us. And again, always mahalo to our sponsors, Ken and Donna Hayashida and the Kai family for supporting this effort. So again, thank you. Have a good weekend and